Stop trying to save $1 million for your retirement. No matter what Dave Ramsey says, Graham Stephan says, Humphrey Yang says, your goal is probably what's costing you to be able to retire. There could be multiple reasons for that. I'm going to get over that in this video, and I'm going to show you why most people do not need to save $1 million in their bank. My name is McKinney Thomas. Before we begin, I am the founder of f.i.r.e, originally known as 3F TV on this YouTube channel, but recently we've done a rebranding. And it's not that 3F TV doesn't exist, but that was always a subcategory of the Hive. The Hive is here for everyone's total health. So on this channel, I normally will post fitness stuff and then also spiritual health stuff. And in this video, financial health content. Now, there's more areas of it when it comes to emotional health, social health, and mental health, but I am not an expert in any of those areas, so I do not focus on that. One day we will get someone on here to co-host with me as well. But for now, it's just me and you. And today we're talking about financial health. And I'm just going to jump right into it. Everyone does not need $1 million to retire. A lot of you are saving and planning to retire with $1 million seen in your 401k or in your checking account. Hopefully it's not in your checking account. Hopefully it's in some stocks and stuff. And then maybe when you get to retirement age, you transfer it over to your checking account. But some of you might need a little bit more than $1 million. I'm not going to lie. You might need more than $1 million. But majority of you do not need $1 million. And this might actually take you away from your goals of retiring because it's just too much pressure. You can't see and fathom how you're going to save $1 million. So you get discouraged. You stop being hopeful. You say it's never going to happen. And then it actually does not happen. Now, let's just go over what you need to actually retire. And the first thing I think is that people often skip this very important step of actually figuring out what their dream is. In any type of situation, you want to reverse engineer. If you're building a house, guess what you do? You draw the finished product first. You talk about what you want with your architect or your engineer, and you think about what it should look like. And then they might draw a 3D model, paint it and everything of what it's going to look like when it's done. So you visualize the end product, and then you work your way after. Then the architect or engineer will tell you it's going to take 10 months to build this house. It's going to take this X amount of money. And then guess what? You work it out and you send them the money in chunks. They do the work in chunks, but it all starts from the end goal. And a lot of you need to do this with your own financial journey. And I don't mean an end goal of I need to have $1 million. If that's your end goal, so be it. Set that goal, and we'll talk about how to actually visualize it and plan it out day to day. But a lot of you don't have a goal of being a millionaire. A lot of you have a goal of being able to retire when you're 65. A lot of you have a goal of being able to go back home to where you're from, whether that's Mexico, the Philippines, Colombia, Jamaica. Go use that land at your grandparents' house. Go buy some new land for $50,000 or whatever it might be, and go live off the earth. Maybe buy a really nice house. Like we just spent a year in Laos, and some people got some houses, really nice houses made. We drove past them and we asked them how much it costs. Like our neighbor got a whole house built for like $30,000. It wasn't the nicest house, but it was a house and it was on some land. We asked about some of these newer developing houses to our friends Spoon Pa, and they were saying that, oh, that costs like 180, 200,000. I'm like, what? And so you need to know what kind of goal you want. If you want to retire in Mexico, if you want to retire in Thailand, Jamaica, Switzerland, Italy, in the mountains of Japan, your goal is going to be different than if you retire in the US. Maybe if you retire in California, you need to have $1 million saved. But if you retire in Costa Rica, if you retire in Ocho Rios, right, you might only need $300,000 to survive. So once you figure out what your dream is and plan it, you can work backwards. So if your goal is only $300,000, you need to make that happen. That's something you can do in 60 years really easily. That's something you can do in 30 years really easily. Or maybe it makes your goal a 10-year goal and you retire in 10 years. So you retire at, for me, I'm about to be 30, so I can retire at 40 in that instance rather than at 60. Or if I just want to make it as seamless and easy as possible and I'm okay with working until I'm 60, I can retire in 30 years. 300,000 in 30 years is a lot easier than $1 million in 30 years. But also 300,000 in 10 years is not that much. That's 30,000 a year. And that's less than 30,000 when you compound interest and investing gains into that as well. So first off, figure out what's your goal. Reverse engineer your dreams. Start with your dreams and figure out backwards. Now we're going to talk about how much you need to save monthly and what type of investments you should look at. But you need to use a calculator. And that's what we're going to be using right now is a budget calculator or investment calculator. So this one is investment.com, which I went to. And this is one I use all the time. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the investment calculator. But before I even get into that, you need to know how much the cost of living in your dream place is. So if it's not in the US, what you need to do is you need to go ask family members, you need to go ask your friends that live in that area or that came from there, how much is going to cost to build, how much is going to cost for yearly expenses. But if you don't know, you can just simply go on Google. So that's what I'm about to do right now. Go on Google and I'm gonna say yearly cost to live, Costa Rica. And I'm on a place called International Living. You can do, this is very easier to do if you go onto like these Facebook groups and you ask people. All right, so I went on a littleadrift.com and it's saying the cost for rent in a Western style 1-bedroom is $450, transportation $175, mobile phone $20. The index expenses was $1285 a month. So if you do $1285 times 12, so $1285 times 12, that's $15,000 a year to live pretty comfortably in Costa Rica. Now, if I know I need $15,000 per year to live, let's say if you want to retire right now and you say, hey, how much do I need for 40 years? I'm 50, I want to live till I'm 90 probably. So 40 years, what you're going to do is you're going to times that by 40. And that's going to say you need $616,000. So if you were not invested in the market, you need $616,000 to live. Now, if you are invested in the market, 15,400 times 25, because if you want to save 4% rule, that's $385,000 you need to retire. So now let's go back to that investment calculator I talked about. So if you have the investment calculator, you start with $500, because I don't want to say zero, you probably have $500. You're going to retire after 10 years. You're 40, and you're going to retire at 50. So 10 years at a 10% rate of return. So you're investing in the stock market, you're investing in real estate. S&P 500 is going to be about 8 to 12% a year. So that's what most people get the 10% from. And annually, you save compounded interest annually. So you need to save about $1,900 so that you have a $385,000 saved up. It's actually going to be a little bit more because we're slightly short. So let's say $1,925 per month. Calculate. You need to save about $1,920 every single month so that you have enough saved up at the end of your 10 years. If you're going to take 30 years to retire and your goal is Costa Rica, in this example, at $500 starting out for 30 years, 10% interest, compounded annually, $185 saved at the end of every month will leave you at $390,000, $350 at the end of 30 years. And that's enough to retire using the 4% interest return, which means you can take 4% of your income out and you still are able to survive off of that until you retire. So with this being said, that is going to be a lot of money in your bank account, just saving $185. This is way off from the 1 million mark. But remember, this is what you need to retire in Costa Rica or in Thailand, probably in Jamaica as well, or any place where the cost of living is low. Now, if your goal is to retire in the USA, this is where you might need the $1,000. But also, if you're retiring in like Alabama, it might be $500,000 you need and not $1 million. Remember that $1 million goal is so that you can withdraw $40,000 every single year to live off of. If you're spending $40,000 a year right now, then you probably need $40,000. But if you're only spending $15,000 to live every single year, even in where you're at, if you're okay with living in an apartment and you're living in an apartment already, and it's costing you $15,000 a year for all your expenses, you might only need $385,000 to spare. Now, inflation is going to happen. You might have kids, your spouse, health issues. This is why you want to have a little bit more just to be safe, especially if your goals change and you're not set up. But if that's all you're going to need, you only need $385,000, maybe up to $500,000. If you're going to live in a place where cost of living is higher, or you want to like ball out during retirement and you need $40,000 per year to survive, you need $1 million. Probably going to be needing more by the time you retire. But if you're in the middle of nowhere in like Alabama in the country, you're off grid, or you're living in a place where rent is $200-300 a month, your mortgage is $200 a month, this is more than enough. And this is why I say you want to reverse engineer and see how much you exactly need to retire. And now what that's going to look like is at the end of that, I'm going to have $348,000. 17 years later, when I turn 50, this compound growth says without any more contribution, when I'm 50 years old, I should have $1.7 million saved. And that's me stopping at $348,000 saved. This is why they say once you get into the 6 figures saved, your net worth exponentially grows. So I did the reverse math and found out that, hey, I can retire early, stop saving for retirement, be FIRE, financially independent, if I stop saving when I am at $348,000. And in order to do that, by the time I'm 35, 34, I need to save $36,000 a year really aggressively. Now, because I know that, I can plan my way. If I didn't want these nicer cars of $70,000 a year, I wouldn't need to go into there, and I can just financially independent, retire early at this number. Because I know I'm gonna be doing a lot of traveling, and because I know the credit card points hacking game, I know I will be able to get some free stays and free travel, so that'll lower my expenses. But this will give me enough money to cover my $40,000 expenses. What I'm going to do in addition to that, because remember I said it's going to be about $70,000 I need to retire under. What's going to happen is I'm gonna make sure I get cash flow. So once I hit to that 34, 35 year mark, what I'm going to do is stop saving for my retirement, and then I'm gonna aggressively invest for cash flow. That cash flow is going to progressively get more and more and more, so I'm not just cash flowing this $1,500 a month or whatever I'm cash flowing right now. It is going to be a lot more than that. I'm going to progressively invest so I can cash flow $40,000, $50,000 a year. When I cash flow $40,000, $50,000 a year, primarily this is going to be doing some businesses, and angel investing in people's businesses, mainly through real estate, and having stuff like my PA house is giving me $400 a month. If I just get 10 of those, that's $4,000. If I get 100 of those, that's $40,000. To be able to get 100 of those in 10 years is not that hard. To get it in 20 years, not that hard. And my goal this year is by next summer to actually get an apartment. So get something between 4 and 10 units. Ideally, I want to go to 10 units. So that's going to be more cash flow there. But what's going to happen is once I get that cash flow, that $40,000 will be subtracted. So if I only needed $40,000 to survive, that cash flow is $40,000. That's already enough for that $40,000 to survive in retirement that people seek that $1 million for. But because my goal is a little bit more, I have $30,000 to cover a difference. Guess where that $30,000 is going to come from? That's going to come from that $348,000 I finished saving 17 years prior. So by knowing where you want to be, you can work your steps. Do you need cash flow? Do you need something to come from your retirement? If you have cash flow coming in, you don't need to save up a hefty retirement. If you move to somewhere cheaper, you don't need to save up a hefty retirement. Obviously, the more you save up, the more you're able to fall back just in case an emergency happens. You want to give to your kids, you want to give to people, you want to give to church, you want to give to nonprofits, which I want to do, which is why I have this heftier goal to retire at 50 with $1.7 million in my bank. This doesn't account for real estate investments. I know I eventually want to get into these fix and flips and these burrs, and that's going to give me a lot more. But this is my baseline of investing my salary, investing my business income for myself into my retirement accounts. So by knowing where I want to go, where I'm at currently, and how long I want to take to get there, I'm able to see that I realistically do not need to save, do not need to invest up until I reach $1 million. I can do that until I get to about 34% of that, and then I can change my goal. Then I can worry about not saving to invest, and I can just worry about getting as much money in as possible. Some of that money I can use to splurge on myself, because remember, I'm set because I already know I invested and reached that goal. But then at the same time, I can know, hey, if I can just keep growing and keep growing, when I do retire, I don't gotta survive off for 40. I don't gotta survive off for 70. I don't gotta survive off for 100. I can survive off for $200,000 a year coming in. And now this is me being comfortable because now I know I have $40,000 to $56,000 coming in every year using the 4% rule, which means after 35 years, because I'm stopping retirement investing at 35 years with this calculator right now with my mindset, which means after that, I can invest aggressively into way more riskier stuff because I know if that fails, I am set because of this. And this is going to take me to not just having $1 million, but going for more and more, because now I'm investing in stuff that's giving me 20-30%, that's giving me a lot more cash on hand. This takes out a lot of stress. So you might need more than $1 million, but that's where you go in, you take the same calculations, you figure out what you need to end, and you work your way backwards and you plan accordingly. Now, if you need some side hustles or you need some information on how to increase your income so that you have more to contribute towards your retirement goals, I mentioned earlier, I'll be talking about some of these in my videos, so go watch these videos, click these links or wherever it'll be. I'll talk about different stuff. I'll talk about some banking and investment apps you can make $5,000 a year from. I'll talk about some side gigs that I've tried, like Turo and Airbnb. I talk about how I'm planning to retire in 15 years, in 17 years. I talk about how I'm planning to retire by I'm 50, but I'm stopping to save at 35. I'll talk about how I went to Southeast Asia for a year, cut my expenses by more than half, and how I was able to use that time to actually build something and actually gain income at the same time, and different non-conventional ways that you can do to prepare yourself for retirement. So if you're interested in that, like I said, click these videos, go watch it. I'll see you guys next time. Remember to smash that like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe.